Today on Let's Talk Schools, Milestones testings are in. We'll tell you how our students showed up and showed out. Hi, and welcome to Let's Talk Schools. I'm Mike Looney, the host of the show, and happen to be the superintendent of schools here in Fulton County. Today we have a very special guest, Hoke Wilcox. Hoke, you have a very long title and a very important job. Tell us a little bit what you do and how long you've been with the district. Let our audience get to know you just a little bit.
So I'm the Executive Director of Accountability and District Applications. And basically what that is accountability, so testing and those things, and then also applications for the district. And I've been with Fulton County for 9 years.
So you remind me of the Brady Bunch show, data, data, data. Marsha, Marsha, Marsha.
Right, that's right.
So you basically help us with our applications and make sure that we are interpreting our data well and that we're using it for improvement.
Absolutely.
Is that kind of a snapshot of what you do?
Yeah. And I think it's important with the data piece to make sure that we provide that to the district and provide accurate information. So very important.
Well, kudos to you and your team. It's amazing to me that we're able to take the raw data and with great accuracy predict what the state is going to tell us our results are. So always a pleasure to work with you and to get that information ahead. So our district uses data a lot, but one of the data sources that's really important to us, to students, to families, is how did we do on the state accountability assessment? That's called Georgia Milestones.
Correct. So Georgia Milestones is the state's system to assess students on how they performed against the state's approved curriculum. And it's administered in elementary, middle, and high school. And we get the results starting about in August. And it's been a very interesting results for us this year. We're very excited.
So when is Milestones given?
Mm-hmm. In April.
In April. So the test is given in April, and we start getting the results back in August.
Right. And so it takes a little bit of time for the state to do their calculations, to clean the data and make sure it's as accurate as possible.
Okay. So families that might be new to Georgia, might be new to Milestones testing, is that testing done online? Is it computer-based? Is it paper pencil?
It is computer-based, so everything's done on computers now, and the students are able to take that in their classrooms using devices that they're familiar with.
Okay. And what grades are tested on Milestones?
So it's in grades 3 through 8, it's everything, and then in high school we do 4 tests.
Okay.
So.
Okay, good deal. So you said we're kind of excited about the results.
Absolutely.
So we've been going through COVID for the last couple of years. Hopefully, knock on something, we're looking in the rearview mirror with COVID issues, but it's been a very tumultuous and fractured time in school because of the absences and the challenges related to COVID. So talk to us about the impact that the pandemic has had on our assessment program and why you are excited about the information that we're getting.
Well, and you're right, it's been a tremendous impact on assessments. I mean, we didn't give assessments one year. We made them optional the next year. When I say we, I mean the state made them optional the next year. And so we really haven't had a district-wide mandatory testing in almost 2 years. And it was exciting to see how our students really answered the call to participate on these tests. And we saw our participation rate go from the single digits in some areas, and in some schools, we didn't even get to 80%. And so the federal mandate in 2021 was waived, and so we didn't have to worry about participation, but it was very low. This year, we saw our participation rate rocket back up to above 95% for the district. And so really excited about that.
So why is 95% important to us?
They want to make sure that as many students as you can get tested. They don't want schools to game it or anything like that. They want to make sure that everybody that can be tested is tested.
Okay, and that's a federal mandate?
That's a federal mandate, right. That's part of a federal mandate to the state, and then they pass it to us.
So if we don't hit the 95% participation rate,
there's some ramifications. So if you don't hit your 95% participation rate at the school level, then it starts impacting their score, and they start decreasing the score based on how low they got.
Okay, so given that you said the last couple of years it's either been optional or we didn't administer it all, what is this data, what is this last year's data, but we're reporting it now, what does the data tell us?
It's telling us that our students, our teachers, our district responded mightily to the challenge of coming back this year. And so what we're seeing across the district is that we look at this based on the RESA, which is the Regional Education Service Agency. That's Cobb County, Clayton County, APS DeKalb, and then we also compare us to the state. Okay. And so as we look at that, we exceeded the RESA in English language arts and math across the across the state.
Right. So I want to slow down for a second. So we compare ourselves to the other large districts in the state.
Correct. In
the metro region. And did I hear you correctly when you said we outperformed the RESA districts?
Yes. So and we're looking at what's called distinguished and proficient. And okay. So those are the two top levels, and those are the ones that really show mastery. And so as we look at that with the RESA, we scored 95% of the categories. We exceeded or tied them.
Okay.
That's tremendous results for our district.
And that was in reading and in math?
So in reading, reading is a little different. Okay. So in reading, we exceeded the state and the RESA all the way across.
Okay.
So third through high school.
So you mentioned two categories. So just for those people that may not be aware, when the assessment results come back in, students are classified into one of four groupings.
Right.
Could you explain those groupings?
Absolutely. So the bottom level would be beginning, and then developing, and then proficient, and then distinguished. And so the bottom two levels really tell us where we have some issues. We have some problems that we need to address, and certainly there needs to be some additional supports provided. The top two levels, those are the ones that show proficiency or exceeding proficiency, and those really tell us the students that have gotten and mastered or even exceeded the mastery.
Okay, so relative to the state results, I think, I don't want to put words in your mouth, no. But this is what I'm interpreting. Relative to the state results and relative to other school districts around us, similar to us, we outperformed both the state results on average and the RESA.
So 95% of all the categories for the state, we tied or exceeded.
Right.
And then for the RESA, we exceeded in 95% of the categories.
Right. That's good news.
That's great news.
But I'm a very competitive person. I'm not really so interested in how we compare to the state, not really interested in what my neighbor's doing. I'm really interested in beating ourselves.
Sure.
So how did we perform relative to how we've performed historically? Let's just say compared to the last couple of years.
So historically, we did fine, and I think one of the comments that we've been talking about is that we really held our own, right? And we can see that Fulton County is recovering from the pandemic, that we can see that our students have really started to respond to the additional help and structures. And one of the things that we've really been hesitant about is trying to draw those comparisons to the previous years, just because either there was no test or the participation was so low, it didn't really give us an accurate statement.
So we really don't have a fair comparison. It's not really fair, I guess, to compare to the previous year or the year before that,
right? Because
students didn't have to take the test, it was optional, or because a majority of the students didn't take the test.
That's correct.
So then what's the most recent test that students took where we met the 95% participation rate that we might be able to draw some conclusions on?
Well, that would be 2019,
okay.
Right? So that was the last time we saw that the state had mandatory tests that we hit that 95%.
Okay, and once again, I know we've gone through a lot, but how have we compared to our 2019 performance?
Again, we're holding our own, right? Okay. We're starting to see the recovery come back. Some areas are doing much better than others, but certainly we see that we're holding our own.
Okay. Well, I know that oftentimes as a superintendent, I get lots of feedback. You're teaching to the test. You're not really teaching, you're teaching to the test. Are we teaching to the test?
No, I think what you see across Fulton County is amazing teachers, principals that are laser focused on student achievement, and teachers that are really providing robust curriculum to our students. And so they meet the needs of the students, meet the curriculum that's mandated by the state, and they do it in a way that's not teaching to the test.
So if the state assessment measures student mastery based on the state required standards, you're assessing whether students have mastered the state standards.
Correct.
So if you teach the standards, then and the students master the standards, then by default,
correct,
your students should do well, assuming they master the standards.
Absolutely.
So we're really teaching the standards rather than the test itself.
That's a great way to put it.
It's just perfectly aligned.
Exactly.
We don't teach the standards, there's no way that the students can do well on the test.
That's right.
Do we know in advance what's going to be on one of the Milestones tests?
So we do understand from the curriculum that the state gives us, we know that those are the standards that will be assessed on it. And then the state also provides some preparation things and materials like that that can help us.
Okay. So not necessarily practicing the test, but practicing the process of
Correct.
taking the test.
Correct.
Because it's computer-based. So operating the mouse, knowing how to do the drop downs and all those kinds of things.
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's look forward. I noticed that there's a lot of conversation, not just here in Georgia, but including Georgia, that there's change on the horizon, that there's conversations about moving away from a single test at the end or towards the end of an academic year.
Right.
To measure the students' learning, to measure the quality of teaching that's happening in a school building, or the quality of schooling in the district or even at a local school. Where are we going here from your lens?
You know, from my perspective, it's going to be an interesting struggle between states and the federal government, because No Child Left Behind and legislation that's out there, it's something that the federal government controls. And so you can't just change your assessment system without getting approval from the federal government. Our state has tried, you know, even this year we had an addendum to change our assessment system, and we got some pushback from the state on some of those things. And so ESSA really tells us how we're supposed to do that and what we have to do. And so I know some states like Florida has changed their assessment system or proposed to change it, but all those things are going to have to be approved by the federal government. And so there's going to have to be some collaboration between states and the federal government to really make those changes. But I agree with you. I think I see some momentum building to going away from the one test per year. There's definitely been a lot of chatter about that.
Okay, so for our viewers, they hear the information about how the district did. They see how their child's school did. But what our parents are most interested in, how did my child, how did Susie, how did Johnny do on the Milestone test? How do they get access to the test results? How do they get more information about how to interpret their child's performance on Milestones?
So a couple of different ways. Number one, they can always talk to their teacher, homeschool, to get that information. If they're in Infinite Campus, they can go into Infinite Campus. There's a little more button. They can click on that, and then they can see what's called the State Longitudinal Data System. And that will give them their student scores and be able to print out really informative reports about how their student did and how they did in, you know, specific areas of the test.
Okay, so a child's data is available to their parent through Infinite Campus, which is the way Fulton County Schools parents access information about their child, such as grading, et cetera.
And principals have been communicating that with teachers and students and parents, so there should be lots of access to that at the school level.
Okay, so I have two different scenarios in mind real quickly. My child didn't do as well as I wanted them to do. What do I do?
Work with your teacher, right? That's your first line of defense, and that's really your best partner in your child's education, is to really mention to them, work with them, and focus on that.
Okay, my child did exceptionally well. They're the brightest of the bright. What advice do we have for those parents?
Oh, I think look for ways to enhance their learning, look for ways to extend the learning. Again, partner with your student's teacher, right? To really work with them to find ways that you can keep that student challenged, because that's so important.
Okay. Is there going to be any more reporting that comes out in the near future about milestones and how schools are identified, et cetera?
So in November, we expect to get the full report from the state, which will be the CCRPI report, and that will give us a little bit more information and give us content mastery scores.
Very good, very good. Thank you so much, Mr. Data, Mr. Data himself. Thank you so much, folks, for joining Let's Talk Schools. If you have questions about how your child performed or you need support getting access to your child's Milestones data, please reach out to your child's school, administration, or their teacher. They'll be glad to help you. This is really important data. People make judgments about the quality of our schools on how well we do on these state assessments, and we appreciate your partnership in this effort. And now let's go around the district in 90 seconds. That's it for our show this week. Let's keep the conversation going. We'd love to hear from you on our social media platforms. Join us next time on Let's Talk Schools. Thank you for watching.